The energy around Foxborough right now is not quiet at all. It feels calculated. You can feel the Patriots shifting pieces, testing the market, reading the locker room, and trying to figure out where that next real swing has to come from. They added more support for the run game, but the pressure still lives with Maye in this passing attack. There is a huge receiver question, a pass rush name worth tracking, a Denver matchup already getting national attention, and Christian Gonzalez's contract situation starting to feel impossible to ignore. Hit that like button, subscribe, because today we are looking at this like people who know how Foxborough really operates. The thing a lot of people are missing here is the order of the moves. New England spent the offseason stacking bricks around the run game. Julian Hill as a blocking tight end, Reggie Gilliam as a physical fullback, Eli Raridun with that same tough blocking profile. That sounds like a locker room message. Mike Vrabel wants a team that can drop its shoulder, protect a lead, sell play action, and keep Maye from having to carry every Sunday like it is some one-man mission. But this is where the real behind-the-scenes signal starts to show up. Even with all that investment in the run game structure, the passing game is still the engine of this season. There is no getting away from it. Maye is the center of the entire project, and when a young quarterback is in that spot, the question inside the building becomes almost obsessive. Who gets open when the play breaks down? Who wins on third down? Who becomes the target the quarterback trusts when the whole stadium knows where the football has to go? That is where Romeo Doubs walks into a situation that is heavier than it looks on paper. Matt Legro of Patriots Wire made a bold prediction. If the Patriots cannot pull off a trade for A.J. Brown, Doubs could rise into a 1,000-yard season. Look, I respect the guts in that take. I really do, because it sees opportunity where a lot of people only see limits. But you can also feel just how big that bet really is. Doubs has never gone over 59 catches in a season, and that came back in 2023, while his best yardage year was 724 in 2025. Last season, he caught 55 passes. That is not failure, not even close. That is a solid, dependable, useful receiver, the kind of player who helps a grown-up offense actually function. The issue is asking him to put on the same jersey, metaphorically, that Stefon Diggs wore in 2025, when Diggs had 85 catches for 1,013 yards and became the main reference point of the offense. Inside Foxborough, I can picture that conversation happening with no fantasy attached. If Brown stays in Philadelphia or ends up somewhere else, somebody has to take on volume. Demario Douglas could have a bigger role, just like Vrabel wants. Kayshon Boutte could force more targets after what he did in 2025 if he stays in New England. But none of those names by themselves fully answers the number one receiver question. That is why the best version of this offense still feels pretty obvious. Doubs as a high-end number 2, A.J. Brown as the centerpiece, and Maye looking across the field with real answers instead of trying to improvise salvation. If the compensation in picks or players gets worked out, great. If it does not, Doubs has to prove the Patriots did not just buy depth. They bought a player who can handle the lights when they get bright. You know that move that begins as a side conversation, and then all of a sudden it is sitting right in the middle of the table? Josh Sweat has that kind of feeling. Everybody is looking at A.J. Brown first, and that makes total sense. A true number one receiver changes Maye's life. But inside a serious building, nobody just keeps staring at one door. If the phone rings for Brown, great. If Philadelphia changes the price, if another team comes in stronger, if the market gets weird, the Patriots need another board already built. Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report named Sweat as a player New England should be watching, and that read does not come from nowhere. The Patriots pushed all the way to Super Bowl 60, but the pass rush still did not have that elite feeling that makes opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable before the snap. Knox cited 34 sacks from the defense, with K'Lavon Chaisson accounting for 7.5 before leaving for Washington. Harold Landry III is back after leading the team with 8.5. Draymond Jones arrived in free agency. Gabe Jacuz came in the second round. There is material here. There is effort. There is a plan. But maybe they still need the accelerator that turns pressure into collapse. And Sweat, whether you like the cost or not, is exactly that type of player. He led the Cardinals with 12 sacks last season. 12. In insider language, when one player by himself produces more than a third of what an entire defense managed, the coordinator does not need some fancy PowerPoint to explain the interest. He just puts on the tape, shows the burst, shows the length, shows the difference between almost getting there and actually getting the quarterback. The most interesting layer is the Arizona context. Sweat signed a 4-year, $76 million deal to play for Jonathan Gannon, the coach he had his Pro Bowl season with back in Philadelphia. But Gannon was fired this offseason, and reports suggest Sweat is not happy with his current situation. That is where the Patriots have to sniff around. Not with panic, with calculation. Because Vrabel knows this better than almost anybody. In December, a pretty story does not knock down quarterbacks. Rotation does. Fresh legs do. A Super Bowl champion edge rusher, with recent production and a reason to want a new situation, could be exactly the kind of piece that turns a good defense into one that can shorten big games. Now move from the trade market phone to the schedule board on the wall, because this is a signal that might bother a lot of people outside New England. The Patriots are must-watch TV again. And for a fan base that spent years hearing cheap jokes about decline, endless rebuilding, and a franchise with no spark, that feels different. Week 17 against the Denver Broncos is already being treated like one of those games with history baked in before the ball is even snapped. It is the AFC Championship rematch. It is Drake Maye on one side, Bo Nix potentially on the other, and finally a chance to see that quarterback matchup after the injury that kept Nix out of the previous meeting. That is the kind of detail TV producers love. But fans read it another way. This is a status test. Kay Adams put Broncos at Patriots as her #1 game of the 2026 season, above Bears-Bills, above Chiefs-Seahawks, above Bengals-Commanders. That is not a small thing. That shows what Mike Vrabel built in 1 year has already moved beyond the Foxborough bubble. The Patriots are not being forced into the conversation because of nostalgia. They are in it because they matter again. And pay attention to the emotional backdrop here. The NFL still left both Buffalo matchups out of primetime, which is a strange call for a division rivalry at this moment. Even then, New England has 6 primetime games, and some of its local window games are being treated like national events. When that happens, the message is pretty clear. The league knows something is boiling again. Denver brings its own storylines too, including rookie safety Miles Scott and that friendly rivalry feeling starting to build again. But the real center stage belongs to Maye, Vrabel, and the Patriots' right to be taken seriously. Critics can complain about Super Bowl 60, they can downplay the path, they can act like it was luck. But nobody puts an irrelevant franchise at the top of the most anticipated games list. So I want to hear from the fan base. Is that Denver game the biggest regular season game of the year? Or is there another one that hits you even harder? And now we get to the kind of news that does not explode like a trade rumor, but it can define the health of the roster for years. Christian Gonzalez still has not signed an extension with the Patriots, and that puts New England right in front of one of those decisions front offices love to talk about quietly, but fans can feel from miles away. Because when you have a corner at this level, the debate is not whether he deserves to stay. The debate is how long you can wait before the market makes the bill even nastier. Gonzalez has already placed himself among the top corners in the league. The projection from Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report has him landing a 4-year, $125 million deal, a contract that would top Trent McDuffie's 4-year, $124 million extension after he was traded to the Rams. That number feels heavy at first, I get it. But let me say this as a fan who also understands the weight of the position. An elite corner is not a luxury in an AFC packed with dangerous quarterbacks. It is oxygen. When a defense faces offenses that spread the field, attack deep, isolate matchups, and force perfect communication, having Gonzalez changes the geometry. He lets the coordinator be more aggressive. He allows more disguised coverage. He lets you send pressure knowing one side of the field does not need constant help. And for a team coached by Vrabel, a team that wants to compete in January with physical, smart, detail-crushing defense, that kind of player cannot become a long drama. The insider layer here is simple. The longer the Patriots wait, the more names get in line to push the ceiling higher. Knox mentioned Devin Witherspoon, also drafted in 2023, coming off a Super Bowl run with Seattle. If he signs first, Gonzalez's number could climb again. And then that attempt to save a few million turns into a bigger bill, with more public pressure and less control. New England has to be firm, but it cannot play a staring contest with a core piece. Drake Maye may be the face of the rebuild. Milton Williams may represent aggression. But Gonzalez is one of the pillars that forces opponents to adjust the game plan. Sometimes the smartest move behind closed doors is not waiting for the fire to start. It is closing the door, signing the guy, and making the whole league understand this core is not for sale. At the end of the day, today's script shows a Patriots team living inside big decisions again. Doubs could be a depth test, or proof that they still need the big swing for A.J. Brown. Josh Sweat is that side conversation that could turn into a decisive move. Denver in Week 17 shows the league is looking at Foxborough with respect again. And Gonzalez is the kind of contract that separates smart teams from reactive teams. Under all of it, one question keeps hanging there. Is New England going to control its moment or wait for the market to control it? If you believe in this new Patriots era with Vrabel and Maye, subscribe, hit the like button, and stay with us.